If you had the chance to change the world like no one has done before, would you do it? If you had the chance to rid the world of all evil, would you do it? If you can make the world a better place, but in turn lose your soul in the process and give up everything and everyone, would you still do it? If you could make a paradise, a utopia, a better place, but slowly descend from God to the devil, would you still do it? What would you do? In this video, I will be discussing the moral implications of the anime Death Note, as well as whether Light was right or wrong for what he did. If you haven't watched Death Note, then I urge you to watch it, as it is probably one of the best animes out there, and it's really short. That said, there will be spoilers in this video. The gist of the story is that the main character, Light Yagami, obtains a Death Note, a book that allows you to kill just by imagining a person and writing their name in the book. After receiving the Death Note, Light Yagami decided to start killing criminals all around the world. So just before we start, I want you all to think. If you were given the Death Note, what would you do? If you were in Light's position, what would you have done? Would you even accept the Death Note? Would you have done what he did, or would you do something different? To get a better idea of what's right and wrong, we'll briefly go into some moral theories. The two major schools of thought regarding morality in Death Note will be consequentialism and deontological ethics. To keep it simple, the theories judge either the action or the consequence to decide if you are morally correct. Meaning consequentialism is basically judging on the results rather than the actions, and deontological ethics judging on the actions rather than the results. Extreme example would be killing someone. That would not be morally correct through deontological ethics, but killing, say, a really big criminal and saving thousands of lives through that killing will be morally correct in consequentialism. So just by that, you can see which side the characters line up on, with our main focus, Light, lining up on consequentialism because of his heavy focus on the end result of his perfect world. Light in particular resounds with a subcategory of consequentialism called utilitarianism. Utilitarianism basically holds that an ethical decision should provide the most benefit for the greatest amount of people. Once that is satisfied, then the decision would be ethical. For example, say a doctor gets a patient. The patient can be saved with treatment, but at the same time we have 10 other patients who need organ donors. What if the doctor purposely did not treat the patient just so he can harvest his organs and save 10 others? From a utilitarian's perspective, that isn't an ethical decision, no? Greatest good for the greatest amount of people? But through deontological ethics, no, it is not. Killing is killing, and you are responsible for it. The blood is on your hands. What did the patient who ends up being harvested do wrong to deserve death? Nothing at all, just in the wrong circumstance with someone who takes the law into their own hands. What would you do in the following situation? If you were a doctor and a loved one of yours was in urgent need of a transplant, and you had one patient who had healthy organs to save 10 patients, including your loved one, would you harvest them even though the person did nothing wrong? Now what if your loved one was the person being harvested? Do you think that's fair? This type of utilitarian thinking is what occupied Light Yagami's mind during Death Note, especially in the start. That said, it all depends on your perspective on ethics. Now that the technical side of things is done, we can argue both sides on whether what Light did was right or wrong. In Light's case, he did whatever he thought would provide the most benefit to the greatest amount of people. I mean, you have to give him that. He did in fact have a better future in mind. he did not just mindlessly murder individuals. He killed only those who were criminals. All of that was done to help achieve his paradise, a new world ridden of all evil. Later on, Light started to kill the people who tried to catch him, but one can argue he did it for the betterment of the future, as without him, a just utopia could not be possible. And if you think of it, getting rid of all the criminals does seem like a solution to stop suffering and the breeding of evil. There must have been a bone in everyone's body that has tingled to the thought of that and agreed with Light there. Intuitively, it would seem that getting rid of criminals would be the greatest good for the greatest amount of people. A utilitarian's dream. Imagine a world without criminals. How would that really be? Light did what so many people would have never done. He risked his life, tainted his soul, destroyed his morals and his reputation, all so that humanity can thrive in this new world. He would do anything to make the world better, even things no one would have ever dared to do. But does that really make him a bad person? If everything he did was for the betterment of society? Light took the proactive path to rid the world of all crimes, by ridding the world of all criminals. Everyone else just wanted to solve crimes, but Light's approach prevented them from happening in the first place. Light did not care if he was hated or lost his soul in the process of making the world better. He would happily become a martyr for the perfect utopia he imagined. However, it is much deeper than that. The world isn't just black and white as people would like to believe. Good and bad, just and evil, creator, destroyer, God, devil, yin-yang, all these exist in all humans. To judge and label someone as a criminal for the whole life without really digging deep into the person's life would not be a wise thing to do. I mean, what qualifies as a criminal? Someone who breaks the law? A tyrant who enslaves and kills a whole race? A special operations soldier who kills a highly sought-after terrorist? They all kill, and killing is a crime, but where do you draw the line? Criminals also get punished with death for whatever crime they commit, if I remember correctly. There is no restoration process. They are just wiped from society eventually. Regardless of the crime, you die. Even if your crime was going against Kira, trying to catch Kira. If half the world united against Kira, would you kill that half too? I mean, what is justice if half the population will get killed just for going against you? Is it in your power to rob someone of the ability to redeem themselves? Some of these criminals could very well have been a savior to our world. By the end of their lives, they could have done more good than bad in our world. One could, perhaps, find a cure to a deadly disease. Killing them off before that would set humanity spiraling downhill. This is all speculation, of course. No way to prove any of it, but it can be possible. Furthermore, what about wrongful convictions? They still happen to this day. Killing a person because they were wrongfully labeled a criminal is the exact opposite of justice. This is a teenager type of mentality in how to fix the world. Just kill all the criminals and that's it. Light had a childish form of thought, as Elle has stated before. He thought of only the direct consequences, but not the long-term consequences and what could go wrong in the future. What is perhaps the most dangerous thing about all of this is the attraction of followers. People who will want to do the same as Kira, but with all varied degrees of morals, competencies, and overall mindsets. All this leads to is just multiple Kiras all killing evil, but no one with the exact same definition of evil as well as justice. If that was the case, we would have multiple people judging us and deciding if we were to live or die. We've seen the chaos multiple Kiras can cause, but imagine having not one or two Kiras, but hundreds, thousands of Kiras doing the exact same thing. If some people decide it's in their best interest to judge people and become a god, then what stops everyone else? What would the world be if everyone took matters into their own hands? I think in a prehistoric and barbaric world where people did not understand the basics of how to live, Light's work would have really benefited them. That way they can learn and not commit crimes in a harsh but effective way. That said, as a species, we are getting smarter by the years. Thousands of years ago, we could not fathom why criminal activities were bad. But now, the majority of our species can. We do not need the constant judgment the Light gave out. We are capable of evolving to figure it out ourselves. To take the law in your own hands like this is to rob humanity of its chance to learn and evolve. It is to banish ourselves back into the Dark Ages, prehistoric times where we fear doing crimes not because of the moral implications, but because of the consequences. It will solve problems in the short term, for a few generations after the death note is no longer used. But then what? The cycle will repeat itself, and in that time, we would have advanced to a point where we fear doing bad things, but do not know the real reason why. Ironically, Light Yagami tried to wipe the world of the biggest criminals, and in turn became the biggest criminal. That is the paradox of this situation. If he truly wanted to get rid of all the criminals, he would have gotten rid of the most notorious one, himself. That leads to the belief that Light was operating on another moral theory, ethical egoism. In ethical egoism, the person acts in a way to promote their own self-interest. This can be seen a few times in the show, where Light cared about himself and himself only. He would easily risk the lives of his family, his team, his friends, all so that he can survive. Light wanted to become a god of the New World at whatever the cost. But then again, there's the argument that he needed to protect himself at all costs, since the New World can only be brought in with him and his actions. Maybe Light is evil, but could he be the lesser evil? Could he have been the necessary evil for a better world? Or maybe he was completely wrong for doing what he did. Stooping down to a monster's level to defeat them makes you no different from the monster itself. The thing about morality is that there is no absolute right or wrong. It is all a matter of circumstance, actions, intentions, and even the outcome. And of course, your opinion on what the combination of the above would be morally correct. We are not all seeing and knowing individuals, so we do not know what would be the best of each outcome. Sometimes you'll be able to choose between right choices or lesser evils, but other times you won't. That is why the contemplation of morality is of the utmost importance. That said, I'm really interested in hearing your opinions. One of the reasons why I love Death Note so much is that it doesn't tell you who's right or wrong. It gives us the opportunity to decide that for ourselves. That said, what do you think?
Standing out there by yourself. What are you doing standing out there by yourself?